Hello everyone, this is Sir Derpy Creeper, and welcome back to Whizdum Wednesday. It's a weekly podcast-styled thing where I just talk about real things in life and better ways of decision-making that can help you be a whiz out of making wise decisions and to steam them up and make them even better. I'd first like to start off with a recap of Watching. If you haven't seen Watching last week, it was pretty rad. I'm gonna be real. It opened my eyes some as well. The thing is about Watching is that I really talk about how, people are watching you, and not in a scary way like someone stalking you or anything like that, but in a way of, people are looking up to you most likely. Like you may have family members or a following, for example, that really are looking forward to you or looking up to you and saying, hey, I want to learn from you. Are you being that person that you want other people to be, that look up to you and say, hey, listen, I want to be that guy? If you'd like to see more on it, I really highly recommend watching. You hear that? Watching? Yeah, it's funny, right? But it's a good segment where, you got to watch what you do, and, other people are watching you as well. And it's a great thing. I hope you guys check that out. It's a very good eye-opener for anybody who doesn't fully realize, what your actions can impact on other people. I highly recommend it. There'll be a card at the top of the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If not, if you're watching on other platforms, it's called Watching. And if you can't find it anywhere, just check it on YouTube, and there's a playlist for it, and there'll be one up on the screen. I want to bring up this right here, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This entire segment, this probably entire video, is going to be deep, and I'm talking heavy. Like, if you thought Wrath was pretty heavy, this is probably going to be heavier. But I want to talk about one situation that happened last week, and it was about a streamer named Byron, and he went by Reckful. Now, personally, I never actually knew who Byron/Reckful was pretty much at all until I heard what happened. And it's a streamer who pretty much took his own life due to mental health problems, and it pretty much shook the community, I'll say. And and he's a WoW streamer, and I watch Asmongold, for example. Asmongold, I phenomenally love watching his content because he's just a real guy. You can see how real he is. Now, he does swear, so any of you family-friendly people, don't go watch him and then come back to me and be like, this man swears. Please don't do that to me. But he talks real stuff, and I saw the impact it had on this WoW community, and I just saw thousands of people just showing their love for him, and it was crazy to me. Somebody with this magnitude of a following and a good personality just leaves and takes his own life due to a lot of things that happened in his life, and a lot of people just, there's a big collusion of things together, I'll say. And it was a big depression thing where depression really, really hits people. And I want to say my heart goes out for his friends and family and the community in general, because, this is a hard time. And I want to say this, the topic's going to be somewhere in the same area, but not exactly of like that. So hopefully it's not too uncomfortable for somebody, but I'm hoping this is an eye-opener or something to help relate to somebody that really is struggling in a time like this, especially when you hear something like this. It really confuses you, and you're just like, what in the world? And then maybe some people are probably experiencing the same things that he was probably experiencing, and I want to see if I can bring some symbolism or wisdom into that, if possible. So, I want to talk about your mind. Your mind can be a very good and a bad thing at the same time. It really depends on how your mind is and how you live your life. It ultimately, how you live, I think, really does shape how your mind is as well. And to be honest, you can live a great life, but your mind can still crush you on the inside. And I want to say that, listen, I believe that if you aren't careful, you can fall into these mental wells. And you're like, well, what do you mean by a mental well? As in, like, there are holes, kind of, you could say, in your mind. If you think way too hard, for example, if you think way too hard on a certain thing, you end up digging yourself deeper into this train of thought of something that's happening. For some people, it could be overthinking, a fearful thing, anxiety, a depression thing, anything like that. And you have wells inside your head. I will say mentally, though, not like, if you may have a hole somewhere in your head, possibly, I guess, but listen to me symbolically here. You have these pits, for example, these dark pits. Some are hidden, some are, well, you can see them. And if you're not careful, you'll fall right into them. Some are deep, some are barely even tall. Some you can just stand up and walk right out of. And I want to talk about the wells inside your mind. It's odd, all right? It's a confusing thing when you have to think of, well, I'm walking on eggs, basically. And you don't want to fall into this dark place. But I do believe at some point in our lives, we may be having the option of falling into a well or walking past it. Now, some people are clumsy, me included, and you'll fall right into one, and not knowing that you fell into one. I want to tell you, when you fall in, they're not very good to fall into. A well is what you expect it to be if you fall into a well. It's dark. The walls are pretty much closed in it, and it's just you. Pretty much, it's just you. Now, your well can be a different thing, though. For my example, I have, about Saturday, I will share an experience, and this is why I think I need to talk about this today, is because I feel like it was a sign of me saying, all right, listen, you need to go through something like this so you can portray it to other people, and I feel like that's what I need to do. And that's, Saturday I had a problem where just a lot of things just mentally went into me, you know what I mean? Like, having a mind of overthinking really can crush you at some points. Now, for me, it was very random, and it wasn't scary till I got myself out of it, to where I was like, man, what in the world happened? Overthinking too far can really crush you down. And then you'll think about all these other things and then all that, and I was just like, man, all this negativity came inside of my head. Anxiety, I do struggle with a bit of anxiety where I'm just like, I constantly overthink. I'm an overthinker. I overthink a lot, and that's where worry came in sometimes too, where I mentioned worry is where, like, I'm a worrier. I worry about random things a lot, and sometimes you get in a mentality where you just don't want to talk to people. You just want to be shut out, left alone. And sure, that's fine in an aspect. It depends on what you do in the isolation, though, whether it's good or not. For me, when I was overthinking and I had so many thoughts hitting my head, and I have a head where a lot of random things will hit you in the head, and they will be like, yo, listen. And, it'll be a lot of things creeped up from the past. Honestly, why am I being a good person if all these other people refuse to see the light in situations? I've had so many of these struggles. And it eats at you. And, a lot of times, a lot of people who have these big, bold fronts, we'll say, like for me, an example, I see myself as a strong individual in some aspects. But, there's that time where you're weak, and then, you're going to get got, basically, and you're going to crumble a bit. Because here's the thing. No matter how strong you are, or how strong you see yourself as, at some point in your life, you're going to get weak. And it's your job to get yourself out of it. I want to tell you that if you aren't careful, you're going to fall into these wells. What I had to struggle with was, one, I let myself get way too far into a thought process of, man, what's the point of helping people if they don't see what I see? You know what I mean? They refuse to see my vision. And the thing is that it is a closed-minded mentality. Here's the thing. Like, me thinking like that, yeah, it was closed-minded. Listen, everybody's different. And I realize that. But I'm sharing the thought process that I had. And it's a struggle, I struggle with, is it worth being a good person? if people don't really acknowledge the good person that you are. And to be honest with you, there are people who acknowledge these things. They may just not be vocal about it, and you may not realize these things. And so I decided to shut myself out Saturday and just not want to talk to anybody, really. I mean, I shot fireworks, don't get me wrong. It was good. But I just didn't want to talk to any of my friends, really. And I just felt like, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to sulk. I'm going to sit here inside this well and just sit here and no one's going to bug me. That's just how I felt. I said, you know what? I'm going to carve into this little brick wall or whatever and just doodle all I want. You know, and I had the mentality of no one really understands me. Luckily, I had the mentality of nobody understands me but God, and I do agree with that, and I do feel like that's to this day. Like, you know, no one understands you truly but God. And so, but the problem is I used that mentality to not conversate to my friends as well, and that was not a good thing. And, you know, I decided to stay in a well for pretty much an entire day and just be like, all right, I'll just do whatever, you know. I had a real bleh mood, you know. I don't know if that would be a depressive state or not. I want to say it is because it was dark and I didn't realize it was dark until because I was just reading through messages and stuff and I was just bleh, you know. I felt like I just didn't want to be talked to, and that's okay in to an extent. Sadly, in my experience, it's not okay not to just isolate yourself. And that's what wells are good at, by the way. They're good at isolating you and letting you sit in the dark. When, you know, especially if you fall into one. And to be real with you, wells are deep, and they can get, the deeper they are, the worse and the harder they are to get out of. And isolating yourself in these wells will really keep you locked inside your head. It'll really make you just only have your own thoughts. And that's not a good thing. Now, you may not realize that if it's a good thing or not because you're inside of it. For example, when I was inside of mine, I didn't realize until I got out. And isolation really locks you out. It really does. It locks you out from, like, help, for example, as well. And so, after a while, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm thankful to have good friends to really help me get out of a mindset that is negative. And to be honest with you, I got myself into this negative mindset of, boy, I don't really care and stuff on my own because I allowed it to happen. And that's where I feel like mentally you have that power to overcome it, depending on how deep you are into this negative void of a mindset in your well. It depends on how hard it is to get out. And luckily for me, I have good friends, and my homie Dixie, she's really rad. She messaged me and stuff. I won't go into details with everything on it, but, you know, I had someone to message me, and I didn't realize what I was doing was wrong, by the way. And the thing is, too, when you isolate yourself and put yourself into these wells, there may be other people who are like, where'd he go? Where you at, man? And, you know, and it could cause other people to even fall into wells themselves. Crazy. It's crazy stuff. You going into a well could cause other people to go into a well and not even realize it. That's where a part of watching yourself comes into. Watching your mind. Your mind will beat you to your ground. I'm going to be honest with you. My mind has a problem where I think of the most random crud that I did that I regret. and it jabs at you sometimes. And you have to really, you know, control your mind and be like, listen, this isn't legit, all right? This is just negativity wanting to sulk inside of me and really eat me alive. And that's pretty much what I let happen for a while, especially when I was overthinking, man. Overthinking can do this. And here's the thing. I went to church literally this Sunday, and I got a good wisdom out of my pastor preaching, and he said, fear can lead to anxiety, and anxiety can lead to depression, and that's true, and I believe that. Now, I didn't have fear. I mainly had the anxiety part, but still, it's a powerful thing. If you let yourself get into these ruts, these wells, it can consume you and take you away from where you're meant to be or from other people that can really help you get out. And I want to say that maybe you all are living in wells. some of you may be living in a well right now and just feeling like, man, you know what? No one gets me. And I get it. Listen, most likely someone may not fully get you, but there's some people who can really get you. You know what I mean? They can understand you. And for me, in the aspect of having someone message me and say, hey, listen, and I hope you're doing well and stuff, it really, it really helps out. And I know it's like odd and it's really random, to be real. I've never had a day like that before, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't want to ever have a day like that again, because not only that, I doing that hurt my friends. Not only did it hurt me, and I didn't realize until afterwards, but it hurt my friends too, and that's not a good thing. And it feels good, when you got somebody to just talk to, and that's what I think a good thing is just to talk to and just let loose all that stuff. Even if they don't fully understand what you mean, letting it loose feels great, all right? Because it's like a bottled up, it's like a shaken up Sprite bottle, for example, and you just let it out. And it's not tight anymore. It's kind of like it's eased out. And that's a part of an overwhelming pain that really voids your heart and your head. I will say it's a learning experience I did not want to take or have. And here's the thing, all right? I bet most of you probably didn't realize your wells have water. Everyone's wells probably have water. Now, don't get me wrong, you can survive in a well for a long time. You can be comfortable in your well. You can drink water down there. I mean, honestly, drinking water, you'll probably survive, And I'm going to be real, sometimes the water tastes really bad. Kind of like life lessons, all right? Some will be fine. You're like, oh, this tastes all right. This is all right. This is a fun life lesson. There's nothing wrong with it. And then some will taste really bad, and you're like, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. But you still learn it anyway, and you still survive through it. I want to tell you that you got to get out of your well. The longer you're in your well, the longer and the harder it is to get out, and the longer it's going to be before you can feel maybe true happiness again. You know what I mean? For me, I felt happiness beforehand, but when I fell into that well, it's like I lost all that void of it. Just for a little bit. Yeah, it was a little bit, but I can almost guarantee you there's someone out there who's been in there longer, who's just going through longer and worse things than just what I had gone through. But you have to get out. And you may be looking at me like, how do I even get out of this? I mean, I'm so deep into this well. How do I even get out of this? And there's many ways to get out of a well. All right, there's plenty of ways. But it's hard, don't get me wrong. There's no way it's easy. You can climb the wall. All right, now that's one way that it's a harder way. The water bucket. Did you know the water? Yeah, there's water down there, but some wells actually have water buckets in them with rope that you can just climb your way back up. Well, some of you may be sitting there saying, yeah, man, but mine doesn't even have a water bucket with the rope. Mine's just just down there. Another thing you can do is call out. Listen, I can almost guarantee you there's some people looking in wells trying to find some people. If you don't call out, you're not going to get your help. It's just like talking to somebody. Talking to someone to let it out. Have someone to know that they're here for you or something like that. They will throw you a rope down and get you out. But you have to, one, willingly accept it. And two, you have to call out for it. Some people may not even know you're in a well. I want to talk about the people who may have friends that are stuck in super deep wells. I'm talking wells that are really super, super dark. Or maybe not even dark at all. Maybe they just need some help getting out of their well. A thing I learned from another streamer, don't watch him if you're not a family-friendly person. His name's LolTyler1. I mean, yeah, get it. I get it. The guy goes crazy bonkers and he says some crazy stuff, which I think's hilarious. But he said one thing about being friends with somebody who's in that kind of depressed state, and that is you need to try and get them out of it. Not just try, but literally make a way. Make a way to get them out of it. And here's the thing too. I agree with this. Even if they hate you, at least they'll be alive to hate you. That's in the aspect of if someone's in that well that goes too far like that. I'm not saying that I had an experience with that, so please don't assume that. This is mainly for my friends and family who are listening, who might be worrying about me. I'm good. I'm way better. But I want to say that if people are that far down into a well and you feel like they're not going to get out, keep trying to make a way for them. You can always make a way. Listen, you can make more rope. You can construct the whole well down if you have to, man. And as Tyler once said, he said, "Listen, they're gonna hate me if I keep pushing forward." And then I agree with this completely. Is that at least they're alive to hate you? Hate's not a good thing, but at least they're alive to hate you. And some people are in these states that you need to really push forward and show, hey, I'm your friend, and I'm going to keep pushing forward until you break out of this. And I think that's a great mentality. Just like, listen, at least you're going to at least be better. At least you're trying and going forward with it, because they will know that. And eventually, in my opinion, someone will budge and be like, all right, I'll let this loose. And then there you go. And then that's when you pick your friend up and then you walk them up. Because a lot of people don't know they're inside. They don't know they're in there. You probably have to call down there as well. You probably have to yell like, yo, what's up? You want to come up here? Invite your friends to something. Listen, if you know your friend's in this like state of like darkness and like consumed with all this like darkness and stuff, invite them to something, I don't do anything that's probably not going to get them to go anyway, but invite them to something. Help them feel a part of something. Let them just know you're there for them. Just bring them out and build them up more. Because you can do that. You have that ability to. Now, I want to conversate back to the people in the wells. Listen, I get it. All right. It's easy to sulk. It's very easy to sulk. It feels good sometimes. Sometimes it just feels better to sulk than to try it all. I don't want you to do that. That's not something you need to do as a person to be the best that you can be. That drills you deeper and makes you worse. And it's very easy to stay in that state. I'm not saying it's hard to get, or I'm not saying it's easy to get out of though either. So I can understand why you want to stay in that mental state, but it's not a good place to stay. And maybe you feel like you're so far down to where not even a bucket is going to come to you. Not even the longest rope of existence is going to come down to you. And I want to ask you, when you look up, what do you see in a well? Nah, sure, it's pretty high up. But sometimes you can probably see that one little speck of a dot. Depending on how deep you are, you can see a speck of a dot up there. And that's usually sunlight. Some kind of light. You're going to be like, oh, well, it could be nighttime too. Well, it could be moonlight as well. I do always believe that there's a light at the end of the longest, darkest tunnel, and it could be a well. The well is a tunnel in a way, in the aspect as well, if you think of that. That light can be different things, I'll say. One, that light will always be there. Even if you have a roof on the top of your well, because I know some wells have roofs, all right? Especially ones with the buckets. There's still going to be some kind of light shining in there. But you can see it. And I believe that you can see it. Being inside that well and sitting there for as long as you are, sure, you can do that. But you won't find that true happiness staying inside that well. You really have to break out of that well. Another thing that light up there could be, by the way, is God. The main thing that gets me through a lot of the stuff that I go through, by the way, and this is my personal opinion, my personal belief. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. Listen, agree to disagree. That's A-okay. A thing that really helped me get through a lot of stuff in my life is God. God is this strong pillar, and I'm talking like an amazing pillar. It's like no matter what the heck I go through, I can sit on this pillar and know it's going to hold my weight. You know what I mean? All these other pillars, yeah, they'll hold your weight temporarily, but they'll end up falling sometimes. God is the only pillar that I feel stays up with me. No matter how much pressure I put on that pillar, it's still going to keep me up. No matter how much. My life has been changed by God, and it always will forever be changed by God. And I'm still learning, by the way. Listen, here's the thing. You're always going to have to learn and improve who you are. Especially if you want to be happy, truly happy, you have to improve and change who you are. That means changing your mindset too. And sure, through the aspect of, well, I don't believe in God. Well, here's the thing. Even though if you're in this dark well, by the way, hold your head up. Because every time you hold your head up, you're going to see that light up there. And you're going to be like, I can get up there eventually. And don't get me wrong. Listen, here's the thing. Getting out of the mindset sometimes takes more than a day. All right? I think it took me an entire day probably to pry myself off of it. You have to really pry yourself off. Once you fall in there, it's very comfortable, I'll say. It's still not cool, and you can't really do a whole lot down there, but you feel like you're there, and no one can reach you. But keep holding your head up. There's always a light up there. Every time you're going to look up there. Even if it's the stars in the sky, the moonlight sky, or if it's the sun. That light is always going to be there for you. It's your choice, though, if you want to look up at it. And the words of the song in Owl City is, look up when the life's got you down, man. Look up. If you can look up when life's trying to drag you down, that means, one, you're seeing where you can go. You're seeing up there and you're saying, I can get up there. It's going to take me some time, especially depending on how deep your well is. It's going to take a lot of time. And time time heals wounds. I do believe the longer you're in a well, the bigger your wound gets. And so the more time it will take to get you out of it. I do believe that. It really depends on how your heart and your mentality is on things as well. I had to go through a lot of talking to God and praying and stuff just to get me out, And that was just for a day. And I'm not saying I struggle with this normally, by the way. Like, last time I struggled with probably anything like that, maybe it was in middle school, but I had a perspective thing. And that's another thing I want to talk to you about is, listen, your well could be a perspective of a really big well, but maybe it's smaller, and you just see it as a big perspective because it's an illusion of how big it is. That tiny speck up in the sky is probably real close to you, and you don't know it because of your perspective. Your perspective can ultimately just warp who you are. Your perspective really actually dictates how you live in your life. And I'm not going to go deep into perspective, but eventually I will make a Wisdom Wednesday on perspective because I do feel like perspective is a thing that you really have to be open about. Because if you don't open your perspective or have an open perspective, you're really going to close yourself down and make yourself a worse person out of it. So your perspective of the well that you're in right now may not be as big as you think it is. You could probably stand up and get out of the well, but you don't know that. That's why you need to really fix your perspective as well. Yeah, sure, it looks like it's all the way up there and you can't get out of there. All right, I get it. But you know what? Maybe that perspective that you were seeing in of that small little dot was actually just maybe a wooden plank on top of your well. And you saw little dots of the crevices in the wood peeking in through the well, but you're so close to the wood you didn't notice it because of how dark it was inside the well. You can take that wood plank right off the well and walk right out of it. That's changing your perspective. That giant thing that you were looking at the entire time was probably just a little speck of a dot that was just peeking in through a cover that you were looking at the entire time. I felt like someone needs to hear that, and I hope it really impacts somebody on that one right there. Well, you may be asking me, it was like, all right, well, listen, I took your advice. Now I'm out of a well, and I'm frightened to even go back inside of it. And the truth is, man, is that is completely variable. You may end up falling into a well again, but you're going to have to use the same tactics you get to get out of the last one to get out of this one. I'm going to be real with you. I'm scared I'll fall into another well. I'm going to be real. Like, scared in the aspect of it's going to take me and make me a worse person than I was before. And that's, I think, is a good fear in a way. Because that good fear means that you're going to be cautious and not try and fall into that ever again. And I hope you have that mentality about it, because sitting in there after getting out from sitting into one for a little while, and you have the right kind of heart, it really feels like you're breathing again. And it felt like you stopped breathing when you were in this well, but when you got out and your heart just had some air and had life back into it, it really feels like you just started breathing right again. And that's how I felt after I got out of that mental rut of negativity and just like, no one cares. But people do care. But in my mind, it was selfish, and that's what happens is when you get locked up so far into that, you get that far. I'd like to recap pretty much what I said. 1, be careful where you're walking in your mind. Listen, it's easy to get lost in your mind, especially if you've got a mind similar to mine where you overthink about everything, or just random thoughts just boom, come in and hit you right there out of the face. It's very easy to get distracted. I have ADD. You know what that means? I think even more. So I get distracted by one thing, I'm thinking about random stuff all over the place. So honestly, I think it's just a stockpile of constant thinking. And it's okay to think about things, don't get me wrong, but it's bad to let these thoughts consume your mind. Because here's the thing, and this is the main thing that I believe truly, is that your heart and your mind are your biggest motivators. All right, your biggest life livers. If your mind or your heart is busted in some way, maybe your heart's holding on to some weight that it can't let go of, maybe your mind's too clouded, it can ultimately affect how you live in your life. And falling into these wells, I think, affect both your mind and your heart, because you're not out there in the light, you're in the dark. Watch where you're walking. When you're walking in this little journey through your mind, don't go so far don't go where don't go where it's going to be bad, all right? Because you'll fall right back into one. Now, is it easy to go back to where you were? Yes, all right, it's very easy. And it's hard to block up these wells sometimes. Sometimes you really have to bury these wells up. And is it going to be easy? No, especially depending on how deep the well is. It's going to be harder and harder to fix up. You can always fix up wells in your head, and I do agree with that. And you can always watch your steps, and that's what you need to do. Watch your steps. Remember, if you fall into one, it's dark, and you're going to be isolated, and everything is just you. Your thoughts alone are not the thoughts you need to be listening to. Now, if you're within a godly heart and you believe in God and you're listening to God, I do feel like that's an okay thing in an aspect, but don't use it to close yourself from other people in the aspect of, all right, no one really cares, so I'm just only going to talk to God. Because you have friends. Listen, you need friends sometimes, all right? I get it. Things get lonely. Being lonely can really cause some bad things for you. And I think that's a thing that can create a well as well, is that, 1, being lonely, having fear, anxiety, and depression, overthinking too much. All this stuff can create wells inside your head that you can just sit there if you want. It can be created by all those things. And remember, fear leads to anxiety and to depression. So if you get too consumed into it, you're going to fall deep into yourself, and that's not good. Remember, though, life lessons can be like the water inside your wells, all right? Sometimes they're going to taste good, sometimes they're going to taste bad. Mine tasted really bad. I'm just going to be honest with you. But listen, when you fall into these wells, learn your way of getting out of that well, because if you can learn how to counteract when you fall back into a well, it'll be a lot easier to get out of. And I think that's a good thing, because if you don't learn how to get out of the well you fell into, you're going to be back in there longer. It's almost like making mistakes. Keep repeating the same mistake, it's not going to do anything. But if you learn from the same mistake, you get better at handling every time. Are you going to be perfect out of this? No. Listen, no one's perfect at dodging these wells. All right, listen. I went since I was 14 all the way up to probably now, where I've never actually fallen into a well like I did. Metaphorically, by the way. I've never fallen into a well. Pretty much throughout all those years, but I hit it when I was just like last week, basically. Anybody can get hit with one. You have to be mentally careful. You can't just isolate yourself. That's another thing. Isolation. Don't isolate yourself from people. Especially your friends. The friends that care about you. Here's the thing. If you've got friends that care about you, conversate it with you. Let it out. Especially if they are telling you that they're there for you, you need to tell them. Because here's the thing. If you lock yourself up into that, not only are you going to cause your friends to worry about you and possibly have an anxiety problem over that because they care about you so much, you're going to end up blocking yourself out and staying in there longer than you need to. If you want to get out of your well, you need to work for it. It's not easy. It's almost like getting out of a habit sometimes, especially some people may have habits of dropping into there and just being all consumed in sulking into the dark. You have to work yourself out of it, whether if it's grabbing that bucket and the rope and just building yourself all the way up out of that well, or grabbing the rope and climbing all the way up, or having just to call out for anybody out there. Because let me tell you something, there are people willing to out there willing to help other people inside their wells. You have to call out and ask for them, because sometimes people aren't looking in your well. For the people who are looking in other people's wells and seeing that people are stuck down there, make a way. Seriously, make a way. It doesn't matter how you do it. I can't tell you how to do it. You're the one who knows how to do it. Make a way. Some people are in very, very, very deep wells that really need somebody to conversate with. You may be the last shot. And yes, it's going to be hard. It's hard to make a way. But reach out. Keep reaching out. They tell you no. Keep reaching out. I mean, don't freaking harass people, all right? But reach out. Make a way. If they're going to hate you, at least they'll be alive to hate you, all right? And I think that's a good thing, all right? Now, I mean, hate's still a bad thing, but here's the thing. If someone's not in the right state of mind, they probably don't even know what they're doing. Being in that state of mind inside the well is not a great thing to feel, and you don't know you're doing it most of the time. I did not know I was inside this well. Now, was mine a deep well? No, it wasn't a deep well. Honestly, I could have probably climbed out anytime I wanted to, but I wanted to stay in there and sulk. Sulking is never the answer. If you isolate yourself, you're always going to feel alone, and you shouldn't do that. There are other people who have the same problems as you, by the way. You're not the only one out there dealing with the one certain problem. You may be one out there that has a certain problem variation than somebody else, sure. But other people have problems too, and they've been through it. And some people can share that, that experience with you and show you, hey, listen, you're not alone. And that's one thing I want to tell the people who are way deep in their wells is you're not alone. Stop forcing yourself to be alone. Isolating yourself is not good. Now, I get it. You may be an introvert. That's fine. Listen, it's okay to be an introvert and still have friends. Don't isolate yourself because it's bad for your heart and it's bad for your mind. Wells are rooted in your mind. You can remove the roots if you want, but it's completely up to you. The main thing I want to tell you is don't fall back in. Work your hardest to not fall back into these wells, because these wells can really break you and keep you from living a great experience in life, because it really keeps you down. That's what a well is. A well is an anchor, basically. So you're anchored down, basically. If you tie yourself to an anchor on the well, you're not going to get out. Untie your anchor. Look up. There's always a light there, whether you see it or not. There's always a light there. If there's a roof above it, some of the stars or the moonlight shining in, probably. The sun's shining in somewhere. Even if it's the smallest little speck, it's still there. It's your choice if you want to go after it or not. Main thing I will also tell you is this, is one, whoever's struggling with this, and I know someone out there struggles with this or is struggling with this, and that's this. I'm going to pray for you. I believe, here's the thing, and this is my personal belief, and it's helped me a lot in my life. And that's, listen, I think people need God in their lives sometimes, you know. You need to just know that there's always this strong pillar holding you up. No matter how hard you fall on your face, no matter how far you go, no matter how deep your well is, there's always a pillar that can push you right back out. And you really need to talk. Just pray. Just try it. I mean, just test it. That's all I got to tell you is just test it. It's crazy. Listen, there's some crazy faith stories out there, I'm telling you. One time, one girl was about to literally end her life, and she said, God, I want someone to just do a handstand right in front of me, or I'm going to go and take my own life. She walks out of the door, and there's somebody handstanding right there in front of her. I'm like, that's some powerful stuff, man. It's crazy, you know. And, listen, I get it, all right? It sounds weird, but these are real faith stories. Now, I'm not saying you have to become a Christian to be happy again. Far from it. Now, I mean, if you want the kind of happiness I have, then yeah, you're going to probably be a Christian. But don't stay inside the wells. You can be happy again. There's nothing wrong with being happy again. This is the main thing that you just need to remember. Once you get out of that well, first of all, get out of that well. All right? That well is nothing but lies, and it's going to make you feel comfortable in a little bit, but then it'll start tearing you down as a person. And once you get out of there, be careful. Either rip the roots of that well right out of your mind, or don't walk into it. You know if it's bad, don't walk into it. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed wells, basically. It was hard to make, to be honest with you. I don't know if you heard earlier, but I did get a little bit emotional, and that's just because, listen, you can really hurt your friends, especially the ones that care about you. Even your family, by the way. I should have mentioned this earlier, but your family can be hurt too, depending on your circumstances as well. But you need to tell some people. If they care about you a lot, tell them. Seriously, tell them. I can almost guarantee you, someone would be more than glad to help you out. And I want to clarify on this is that I am not a mental health expert. So if you're wanting to seek true mental health expertise, I would recommend go seeing a professional. I'm not a professional. I only speak through either experiences I have been through or a wisdom aspect in the way I think on certain things to share to other people. And I hope this really helps at least one person break out of their well. This is quite a long one, and I don't apologize. I thank you for listening to this if you listen through all of this. It's not a fun thing to talk about or to go through, I will say. But if you can just break out of that well and see the light and have your heart filled and your mind cleared, if one person just is able to at least make that first step forward, I honestly think this is totally worth it in my opinion. No matter how hard or how long I work on this video or the experience I went through, as long as one person steps out that well, I honestly think it's the best thing ever to me. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I spent some time trying to think of what to say in this, and I hope that this really spoke to somebody. If it didn't, please let me know. Let me know in anything. I really want to hear feedback on this because sometimes people don't realize they're in wells, and I want to let people know. But if I did something in a wrong way, I would love to know what I did in the wrong way as well. I have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I have YouTube and Twitch. I live stream these on Twitch, by the way, so hello fellow Twitch, not streamers, unless you're streamers in the chat, Twitch viewers and YouTube viewers. And so all the talks and possibly the VODs will come into the future as well. They'll go on YouTube, so just in case you've missed anything from it going live, because I also go live with these videos and I conversate with the chat afterwards. So depending on if I think the VOD is worth being put on YouTube or not, I'll put it on YouTube. I have 2 or 3 VODs right now that I think are really worth it that I want to put on YouTube as well. But I hope you all check those out. Please do. Please contact me if this helped out at all in any way. I'm very interested to see any feedback on these things, because I normally don't talk about this kind of full-on heavy stuff, but since I had that experience from Saturday, I wanted to get it while it was fresh on my mind. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for pretty much everything. Thank you for the friends who I can call my friends and just be happy about it, and be, comfortable sharing things that may not be comfortable sharing in the first place. And thank you to my family for being homies and just giving me a loving life. Then thank you, mainly, importantly, most of all, thank you, God. Because God is the main thing that's just pulled me through all of this, and that's just how I feel. And I want to say, it makes me truly happy that I can always have that strong pillar to rely on. Anyway, I hope this was able to make you a whiz out of making wise decisions, and I hope you're able to steam them up and make them even better. Until next Wisdom Wednesday, I'll see you next week.